Can I do better than FC25 when it comes to predicting the Premier League? Let's find out. So, based off last week's predictions, not a huge gap, I'll be honest. I only managed to get 8 points from last week of a possible 30, whereas FC25 managed to get 7, so I'm only ahead by a point. Remember that this is a video game made by EA Sports, and I am a so-called football genius. That's just what I call myself in the mirror every morning. But yeah, both me and FC25 did manage to predict one correct scoreline last week. I correctly got Brighton against Fulham correct. I predicted 1-1 for that one. And FC25 predicted Aston Villa and Newcastle will finish 0-0. Basically, how the point system works is that if we get an absolutely spot-on correct prediction, as in the right outcome and the right score, we get 3 points. If we get the correct outcome, so as in, let's say Tottenham won 3-0, but I said 2-0, then I still get 1 point. But if I got one I was completely wrong, that's of course 0 points. So last week I predicted Liverpool to beat Bournemouth, Sunderland to beat West Ham, Spurs to beat Burnley, Man City to beat Wolves, and Arsenal to beat Man United. But I also managed to get the Brighton Fulham score absolutely spot on, as I've just mentioned before. And FC25, they also predicted Liverpool to beat Bournemouth, Sunderland to beat West Ham, City to beat Wolves, and Arsenal to beat Man United. And they also obviously got the Aston Villa Newcastle prediction absolutely spot on as well. So hopefully that makes things a little bit more clear for you guys. Let's now get into the Week 2 predictions. Starting off on Friday night at the London Stadium, we do have West Ham up against Chelsea, both sides who failed to win on the opening day. Yeah, West Ham, they would absolutely so poor against Sunderland. If you guys want to see my full review on the Sunderland West Ham game, there will be, you can check that out on my channel. And yeah, I mean, I think without Jarrod Bowen, I dread to think where West Ham could be, because they just looked all over the place. They had lots of the ball, but they just didn't do anything with it really, and apart from 2 half chances, they didn't really look like getting a goal either. And unfortunately, I think the same could have for Chelsea as well. I mean, to be fair, they were actually quite lucky to get a point in the end against Crystal Palace. Had it not been for Essie's free kick being controversially disallowed, as well as a Stonewall penalty for Crystal Palace not given as well, Chelsea were in the end quite lucky to get away with a point on Sunday. And again, they just didn't really look like scoring either. I mean, the overall build-up play just looked very slow, lethargic. Yeah, Chelsea, I don't know if it's just exhaustion from the Club World Cup or just the fact that they weren't really prepared that well for this game. I'm not quite sure, but they didn't look that amazing. However, if it is game at West Ham, they'll be keen to right the wrongs from last weekend, but you'd think Chelsea got more than enough quality to dispatch of West Ham. I mean, to be fair, one of their fans said it perfectly in my opinion: if you can't beat Sunderland, who can you beat? If you can't beat the team who everyone's predicting to finish rock bottom and have absolutely no chance of staying up, who can you beat this season? And unfortunately, I do think it will be back-to-back defeats for West Ham going into this season. I'm going to go with a 2-0 away win there for Chelsea. And FC25 agreeing along some lines. However, they've just gone with a 1-0 win there for Chelsea. Moving on to Saturday lunchtime, we do have Man City up against Tottenham, 2 of the best performing teams from last weekend. Man City currently at the top of the table because they dismantled the Wolves 4-0 at Molineux. Yeah, it seemed like a return to normalcy for Manchester City. They seem like the old team that we've begun to love and know under Pep Guardiola. They just look lethal going forward every time. You know, Haaland getting back to scoring a brace. Tierney Reinders and Ryan Cherky both getting goals on their debuts as well, which is always nice. I actually pointed out in my Premier League predictions video that I thought them two would be key to filling in that void left by Kevin De Bruyne, and it looks like they're both already doing that already. I mean, Reinders is looking to be an absolute bargain as well for what City paid for him. And Tottenham as well, they looked very comfortable against Burnley, obviously dispatching of them 3-0. Richarlison, you know, obviously this is a World Cup year, so of course Richarlison's going to actually start playing well. And yeah, also his second goal was just a chef's kiss. It was a really nice goal, it really was. And yeah, I think other than the spell towards the end of the first half, Tottenham didn't really look too threatened by Burnley. And I think with Spurs as well, under Thomas Frank so far, they just looked so much more organised at the back than they were under Ange. It was like Ange's kamikaze style of football where Tottenham was so vulnerable at the back. Yeah, Frank seems to have cleaned things up very nicely, and then yeah, I think Spurs look a lot more what they were like under Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, in my opinion. But for this game, I think obviously this game, particularly at the Etihad, it usually does produce goals. You know, there's been the 3-3 draw last season, 4-3 as well. City won. You know, there's been some crazy games for this fixture at the Etihad, And I think it'll be more of the same in this game. However, I think, because they are at home, and because there seems to be a bit more of the old seat that we don't know, I think I'm just going to edge them for the win in this one. I'm going to go for 3-2 home win there for Man City. Whereas at 25, I've gone the complete opposite way. I think Tottenham are going to nick a 1-0 win here at Etihad, which will be a statement win for Tottenham, definitely will. Moving on to the 3 o'clock games, we do have Bournemouth up against Wolves. Again, 2 teams who both lost on the opening day. To be fair, I thought Bournemouth gave a good account of themselves against Liverpool, all things considered. I think scoring twice at Anfield, not many teams do that, to be fair to Bournemouth. And as you said, Antoine Semenyo, especially after the abuse he got in the first half by that dickhead fan, he just responded in the absolute perfect way. And he looks very, very bright. I think for Bournemouth, I think what people kind of thought would happen with them did happen, and that was their defence being stretched. Petrovic and Diakite not having the best of debuts for Bournemouth, but conceding 4 goals isn't great at the best of times, and never mind on your debut. And they did look so disappointed at the back, but going pretty well going forward. And for Wolves, I mean, we just touched on them, the fact that they got absolutely obliterated by Man City. Did they have a couple of bright moments in the second half when the game was dead and buried a little bit, but yeah, losing 4-0 at home is never a good start of the season. But I don't think we really got the true reflection of Wolves in that game, because as I said, they play Man City at home. Like, come on, they were never going to really do much there. However, in this game, it's a pretty interesting fixture, Bournemouth versus Wolves, because you've got to go back to 2015 for the last time the home team won in this fixture. Back when both teams were in the Championship. Although Bournemouth did beat Wolves in the FA Cup at home back in February, that was on a penalty shootout and not actually a game that was done after 90 minutes or after extra time. And so the away teams usually just have to do upper hand in this fixture. But I think Bournemouth overall have more quality than Wolves, especially going forwards. And I think you're being at home, I think Bournemouth might just have enough to get their first win of the season on this one. I'm going to go with 2-1 Bournemouth win for this one. However, once again, I am SC25. I'll disagree with you completely. They're going for complete opposite win. They're going for a 2-1 Wolves win. They think Wolves are going to keep up this current theme of the away team getting in the upper hand in this fixture. It should be an interesting one, though, I'm sure. Next, we've got Brentford up against Aston Villa. I mean, Brentford just having the worst possible start of the season, as I think we all kind of expected. Just 3-0 down at half-time and Great Nottingham Forest just isn't great at all. And the goals are conceded as well. I mean, to be fair, Chris Wood's first goal was a very nice finish, but yeah, Kelleher was just left stranded for all the goals. It just wasn't a good showing from Brentford in the first half, especially. Second half, they had more of the ball. Obviously, as Forest, had the game wrapped up by then. They didn't really want to risk any need this, like hamstring issues. And of course, Brentford did score a penalty, so they're up and running for the goals this season. But yeah, overall, they just looked so poor. Brentford, I think most people did expect to happen, really. And they come against Aston Villa, who, again, weren't that much better, really, than Brentford. Although they did get a point and a clean sheet on the opening day against Newcastle, I think you can thank a lot of heroics from the goalkeeper and as well from Newcastle just not being able to hit the barn door. That's the reason why Villa did get a point. Obviously, I'm aware Villa were down to 10 men for the last half an hour, but even before then, it just didn't really look like doing anything at all in that game, and they've got to improve in this game if they are going to actually be serious about this season. But I think, going to Brentford away, I think it's a good time to play Brentford, because they've got a new manager who no one has any faith in whatsoever. They've lost half the players, the key players. They're looking pretty disjointed right now. And I think Villa, it won't be a great game this one. I'm not expecting too much to happen in this one. But I think Villa might just have enough quality in them to get the win. I'm going with a 1-0 away win there for Villa. Whereas SC25 thinks this game will finish as a stalemate 1-1 draw. I can see that happening. I can definitely see that happening. Next, we have Burnley up against Sunderland, 2 promoted clubs coming up against each other in the second week of the season. I always like when 2 promoted clubs or 2 relegated teams play each other early on in the new season, because I think it's a great way to actually, compare the 2 teams and how they've both prepared going into the new season. And I think they'll definitely be on short in this one. Obviously, Burnley, I think going to Spurs away as a newly promoted team is just not the great start for them at all. And then, I don't think there's any shock that they were beaten quite well in the end by Spurs. Although again, they definitely gave a good account of themselves in the first half, and I think the scoreline definitely didn't quite reflect the whole game. I think this will be Burnley's main opportunity to really actually show what they're about this season. And coming against Sunderland side, who had just the absolute perfect start to the season, a 3-0 win at home against West Ham. Yeah, literally, I've already mentioned my review on the Sunderland West Ham game. Yeah, brilliant start. It really was a good start for us going into this season, and we've already got our first win up on the belt as well, which is always really important. Going into this game, though, is definitely a bigger game for Burnley than it is for Sunderland. You know, Burnley being at home, and the fact that both Sunderland and Leeds have both won the opening game, but Burnley haven't. I think Burnley are looking at this game as a must-win game. You know, just to really, actually make themselves look like they are going to compete this season. And I think being at home is definitely going to help as well. Last season, Turf Moor was a fortress for Burnley. I believe they went the whole year unbeaten at Turf Moor as well. Although had Sunderland actually converted 2 penalties in that 0-0 draw back in February, then it might be a little bit different there. But in this one, I just think things are going really well at Sunderland right now. There seems to be an overall feel good factor at the club. I think it'll be a very tough game. Don't get me wrong, I'm very nervous for this game just because I'm just it'll be typical Sunderland to go to just blow at West Ham away in the second half to then go and lose to Burnley. It would be fucking typical. It really, really would. But I think we might just have enough in us to actually get the job done in this one. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Sunderland win in this game. And SC25 are agreeing with me completely. They've also gone with a 2-1 win for Sunderland there. That would be a perfect start. If we could start with off of 2 back-to-back wins, it really, really would. Then on Saturday Night Football, we have Arsenal up against Leeds. Arsenal didn't do very well, in my opinion, against Man United. I mean, they came in with a win and a clean sheet at Old Trafford, which is always great, but they didn't play very, very well, and they were definitely built up by a brilliant set piece from Declan Rice. They didn't look very good at all. Arsenal looked very disjointed. This wasn't a good performance at all from Arsenal. Although they did defend well, and David Raya definitely had his heroics to thank as well for Arsenal. It just wasn't brilliant from Arsenal. The free-flowing football that we all know they are capable of doing. Against Leeds, who were very, very impressive against Everton, I must admit. And although this one, it definitely is where Leeds are playing away, not at home. I can't believe I got that wrong last week. If I hadn't made such a fucking stupid error and had Leeds were playing at home against Everton, I probably would have predicted a Leeds win or at least a draw, not an Everton win. In that one. So yeah, definitely making sure that Leeds are definitely playing away this time, not like that mistake I made before. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the penalty was controversial, we're aware, but I think Leeds deserved to win anyway, even if the penalty wasn't given. I think it probably would have been half done by if that game did finish as a 0-0 draw. I think for Leeds, I think the problems that were highlighted during pre-season, they've definitely showed in that game where they had loads of the ball and they look threatening going forward. There's just no creative spark really in the final third. And I think it's just highlighting the fact that they are in desperate need of a quality striker, or if not, then definitely like a number 10 or maybe a winger. Just to have that bit of a bit of magic in the final third where they just didn't really have it against Everton. Lucas Emeka, though, brilliant penalty from him. One hell of a penalty, smashing it. It's how a penalty should be taken. So definitely a good penalty from him. And yeah, I'm looking at this game for Leeds and thinking, could they do it? Could they go to Arsenal and take something from this one? Because if Arsenal play like they did against United, they could be a bit of bother in this game, I'll be honest. I'm not expecting Leeds to have as much the ball in this game as they did against Everton. But I think they are capable of switching up their play, where they are tough to break down, especially away from home. And if Arsenal have more problems like they did against United, I think Leeds could actually cut away with something in this game. And I can't believe I'm saying this at all, by the way, but I think Leeds will get a point in this game. I'm going with a 1-1 draw. It's crazy, I know, but I think Leeds might just do something in this game against Arsenal. I've got a really good feeling about that at the minute. Yeah, 1-1 in this one. Moving on to Sunday, we do have Crystal Palace up against Nottingham Forest. Now, this is definitely a game we've all been looking forward to seeing. This has been probably one of the big news stories coming out of pre-season. Both teams fighting each other in court behind the scenes, where obviously in the end, Forest have been given their Europa League spot, with Crystal Palace being demoted down to the Conference League. Now, Crystal Palace are in action on Thursday night against in the Conference League qualifiers, so I am keeping that in mind ahead of this game. And whereas they, although they are at home, they are still, there is still only a 3-day gap between them and Sunday, where they do play Nottingham Forest, whereas Forest have, since they've already qualified for the Europa League, they've got a nice break in between games, so I am keeping that in mind. As of recording, Guéhi and Eze will still be Crystal Palace players for this match unless something happens drastically in the next few days. And yeah, Crystal Palace, I'll be honest, they were pretty unlucky not to get all 3 points against Chelsea, as I mentioned before. Eze's free kick, unfortunately was disallowed due to Guéhi's, blocking the wall in that one. And of course, obviously, they were denied a penalty, which should have been given. And Nottingham Forest, I think people had their reservations about Forest going into this season. But I think that first half performance against Brentford definitely shut up everybody. Obviously, second half they were a bit more relaxed on the ball. They didn't. The game was already won. They didn't really have to do much. But I think they're going to be more on the toes in this game. And this game hopefully has some fireworks in this one. And hopefully for Marinakis' sake, he doesn't actually go to this game because the Palace fans will fucking kill him if he does show up. It'll be great viewing, obviously, but yeah, it'll be a really interesting game, this one, and I think that this game could definitely be up there as the game of the weekend, maybe, if there wasn't going to be a certain other game on Monday night. I think there will be a draw in this game. I think it'll be a good game of football to watch. I think both teams will definitely leave it all on the pitch, but I don't think there'll be much to separate these two teams. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw for this one. And FC25 agree with me that it will be a draw, but they've gone with a boring 0-0 once again. Get used to hearing that prediction from FC25 this season. Next, we do have Everton up against Brighton. Everton definitely are at home this weekend, not at Elland Road, as I got that wrong last weekend. Up against Brighton, Brighton should have beaten Fulham, really. Let's be honest, so many chances to put the game to bed that didn't. And then they were outdone by a last-minute Fulham winner from Rodrigo Muniz. And Everton, they were just abysmal against Leeds, weren't they? Really, David Moyes does this thing on the first game of the season where he plays a shit team on purpose. As a sort of like a message to the board, as in like he hasn't fully feels like he's been back enough, which I think is fucking ridiculous because I think Everton have actually had a really good transfer window so far. They've spent money quite well, in my opinion. I think for me, this has probably been one of the best windows I've had in a long, long time. And yet Moyes being the complete bellend he is, just feel that the shit Everton team out on purpose. And yeah, they just look all over the place. They really, really did. And yet somehow still managed to nearly come away with a point had not been for that penalty. Obviously first game at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. If Everton continue to play the same way that they did against Leeds, then Brighton should have absolutely no issues at all whatsoever in this game, if you think about it, really. But if Brighton do have some issues where they just can't kill the game off, then Everton might be able to sneak a little goal here and there. But I do think the team will crash the party at the new stadium, and I do think that they will come away with a 2-0 win there for the Seagulls. And FC25 agrees with me in this one. They've come with a 1-0 win there for Brighton. And then final Sunday, we do have Fulham up against Manchester United. Back in the day, this was a ground which United just couldn't get win at to save their lives. Fulham had a brilliant record against United, with Craven Cottage in particular. However, in the last few years, I think that's sort of been reversed and sort of been a bit more of a like back and forth type fixture for this one. Fulham, to be fair, I think going to Brighton away, I think it was sort of just what they expected, really. They didn't really look like they were really going to do anything in that game, to be fair. It was a pretty typical away performance, I think, on Fulham in that one. And it was a bit of magic from Muniz in the last kick of the game to get Fulham a point away at Brighton, which I think they would be absolutely over the moon with. Against United too, I'll be honest, I thought played very, very well against Arsenal. They looked pretty good. And Ben Cunha looked very, very they looked like handfuls. It just although it's only one game in, it just seemed like a complete night and day compared to United from last season. And I think as soon as one of them, Ben Cunha, starts getting the goals, they're just going to start flying in. But yeah, ultimately that was United's downfall against Arsenal, was the fact that they just couldn't, really just get a good shot off, really. And, David Wright having a very comfortable afternoon and goal for Arsenal. He wasn't really challenged too much by Mbemba Cunha going up front. And Sesko didn't really look like he was going to really do much in his sort of cameo as well. I think less about Bayendia and Ugarte, though. Fucking absolute howlers from them too, it has to be said. Yeah, in this one, although United did feel the scoring against Arsenal at the weekend, I think there's something positive brewing at Old Trafford right now. Although yes, the club's still in a fucking complete mess at the minute. On the pitch, things seem to be slowly starting to, get a lot better. And I just think United should beat Fulham away. They should, personally, in my opinion. They've got more than enough quality now, especially up front, to actually dispatch off Fulham, who have made one signing all summer, being a backup goalkeeper. I think United beat Fulham in this game. Genuinely, I do. I liked what I saw from them against Arsenal. I think they'll go to Fulham. Although they lost, although it had a lot of positives, I think United do beat Fulham in this one. I'm going over 2-1 away win there for United. Whereas at 25, shock horror, happy to a 0-0 draw, which it could happen to be fair in this one, but yeah. And then a 0-0 draw, the third 0-0 draw that's which I predicted this weekend. Mental. And then the final game of the weekend, and for me, saving the best until last, Newcastle up against Liverpool on Monday Night Football. Now, let's be honest, this whole game has been ramped up because of the whole Isak drama, especially with what his statement that he made last night, and basically accusing Newcastle of not keeping their promises and knowing his stance from the get-go. And of course, I mean, even if Isak had made that statement, I think it's pretty clear that he wasn't going to play in this game anyway. Because why would you play against the team who you want to sign for? It wouldn't be good at all. But yeah, this game could be feisty. And truthfully, I don't envy Liverpool, because going to St James's Park anyway is a hard task. Because Newcastle just rarely lose a home these days. And going into that atmosphere where the fans are going to be riled up because of what Isak's doing, the players are going to be riled up now. This game could be feisty, but there could be handbags in this game, and I'm hoping it absolutely delivers. It really does. For Newcastle, I mean, a Villa away at the weekend, I mean, I think having no Isak's definitely showing, because they look so useless in front of goal against Villa in a game which was definitely taken ready for Newcastle, and they couldn't capitalise on it whatsoever. And Liverpool, I mean, again, similar to what I said about Bournemouth a few minutes ago, going forward, they looked very, very lethal. I mean, obviously, I think every time they went forward, they looked as though they were going to score. But at the back, they were just all over the place. I mean, Konate having an absolute stinker of a game. I think Liverpool, I think as soon as they get Guehi in, the better. Because, God, they need a better header than fucking Konate. They really, really do. And in this game could have a lot of goals in this one. Although Newcastle didn't score against Villa and didn't look like scoring at all in that game, let's be honest, I think at home, it's a completely different story, because Newcastle only failed to score at home once last season, which I think is a very, very impressive feat, to be honest. Yeah, this game could have goals, and yeah, I'm hoping it has the feist that it is building up to be so far, but I think it will end up in a victory for the away team. I just think Liverpool right now have more quality than Newcastle do. And especially since Isak isn't, available. And then, yeah, I think despite the Geordie crowd being up against them, I think Liverpool will come away with a win in this one. I'm going to go with a 3-2 away win there for Liverpool. And at 225, also think Liverpool can win this one, but I think it'll only just be a 1-0 affair, which, I think both of us thinking that it is only going to be just one goal that wins it says it all about how this game is looking right now. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Let me know how you thought your team got on last weekend and how you think you'll get on this weekend. What's your game that you're most looking forward to as a neutral? And who do you think will be the surprise package this weekend? Let me know down below in the comments. Anyway, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you all next time.